Can you become a fan of Devil May Cry by starting with Devil May Cry 2? I have never played a Devil May Cry game before, so when doing research for this series, I was surprised with how unanimous it was that the second game in the franchise was the worst. And it wasn't even a close competition. Now, Devil May Cry has always been a franchise I have known about. I've seen the cosplays at my local PAX events. I know of Dante as being some incredibly charming and sexy hunk of a man. But for all I know, the series could be about us bullying a devil in the hopes that he may cry. He may cry, but we can't be certain. I also knew that this was a fast-paced hack-and-slash game. However, I was too busy playing the God of War series instead. And if you compare these two scores, I chose correctly. So, Devil May Cry 2 has a story, at least I think it does. I came in expecting over-the-top anime action, witty one-liners, maybe some cool demon-slaying story. And what I got was Devil May Cry 2. And let me tell you, it has hints of all of that, but if this is your first impression of the series, you were probably thinking, does anyone like these games? How did it get a second in the franchise? Someone tell me how. Dante is the main guy, and honestly, he's the only character I kind of liked, which is wild because the man barely talks. Most of the time, he's just standing around flipping a coin like he's trying to decide whether to keep starring in this game or just walk off the set and go to Street Fighter instead. But somehow, his lack of emotion, it works. Compared to everyone else talking in riddles that made absolutely no sense, Dante's quiet, too cool for school energy is almost refreshing. He's not very witty or funny in any way whatsoever, but he gives off an incredible amount of aura that I could feel it through the television screen. Don't get me wrong, he's not perfect, and when there are only 3 other characters in the whole game, you don't have a lot of competition. And then we have this lady, Lucia, who shows up out of nowhere telling us that demons are attacking. And Dante's just like, okay. And that's it. No curiosity, no witty banter or slight flirting, and not even a follow-up question. Imagine if someone told you that demons were invading the world. Surely you'd have a few questions to ask. Also, where are all the people in these towns? What is happening around here? They shovel in some backstory about Lucia and this old lady who is her mum but then isn't, and she's actually like a clone or something. But none of this really mattered to me at all, especially when the world is about to be destroyed. So who is behind all of this evil? A guy named Arius, and he's not some large epic demon, no. He's just a businessman, just a regular vampire looking dude in a suit. Now these rich billionaires may be scary in real life. I mean, just look at this. But in a demon hunting game, it's like if the final boss of a Resident Evil was Jeff Bezos. Anyway, Arius wants to summon a demon god. Why? I don't know. I feel like the game never really explains this motivation beyond, because I'm evil.
Maybe another time.
Now, I was a little surprised after playing through as Dante that the game has a second campaign for Lucia, which sounds great on paper until you realize they are basically the same story, just with slightly different cutscenes. It's like watching the same bad movie twice, but the second version is the slightly extended version. So after hours of Dante mumbling and Lucia being confused about her DNA, the game ends with Dante driving a motorcycle straight into hell. Which should be the most badass metal thing you've ever seen. But instead it just feels like he's returning the copy of this game back to his local GameStop. Most of you watching right now are probably fans of Devil May Cry 2, and yes, it seems like I am just putting the story down, but despite that list of negatives I just listed, and there's quite a few, there are still little hints of what I assume is that Devil May Cry magic. And I will give credit where credit is due, the voice acting is kind of awesome.
Wait, What are you doing?
My job is hunting devils.
Dante spits out some cool one-liners, just adding to his incredible amount of aura. His relationship with Lucio is kind of interesting to me and something I'd love to see a follow-up on. As a matter of fact, I feel like if they explained what was happening a little more, maybe added a few more characters and maybe a cute little relationship between Dante and Lucia's mother, then it would have been a completely fine story. It sort of just comes and goes, and in no way did it hype me up in any way to see what is next for Dante.
What are you doing, Granny?
So, Devil May Cry is supposed to be the gold standard of stylish action. Crazy combos, flashy weapons, and grading you on how cool you look while killing demons. I was incredibly excited to jump into this game and see what I could pull off. And honestly, I wasn't pulling off anything that great. I was just barely pulling off myself. Now, obviously there had to be some user error here because I was never doing any big, major, epic combo. I never looked graceful playing. I imagine it looked like what I looked like when I was losing my virginity. But I feel like the game did no favors in making it easy for me to look good. It's like they had the recipe for a gourmet meal and said, what if we just gave people a slice of bread instead? Here's how the combat works. You press the sword button and you keep pressing it. You add in a few jumps and that's it really. No cancel system, no combos or heavy attack and light attack situation. Just endless button mashing until the enemy dies. I honestly thought that this was a hack and slash game about mixing up your moves and staying stylish while doing so. Nope, because in DMC2 you can literally stand in the corner and shoot your pistols forever. Guns are so overpowered they might as well call this game Devil May Shoot. They add in some wall running which sounds cool, but it almost completely stops your momentum. You end up just sticking to the wall and it ruins any cool combo you were performing. While I did enjoy using Dante's range weapons, I actually enjoyed playing as Lucia a whole lot more. To me, she felt way more fluid in her fighting ability. She can do this cartwheel attack that keeps combos going, and that to me felt like this little taste of what the combat in Devil May Cry should feel like. There is an okay amount of enemy variety, and some of them can provide a decent amount of difficulty if they gang up on you. Although the way they keep spawning them in right in front of your face is forever annoying, and it's the only thing in this game that prolongs the gameplay experience. The boss fights for me were the real highlight of the game. They are all these large, mysterious, and quite intimidating forces of evil. Each require a little more effort to defeat instead of just hit until they die. Although a good portion of them can still be killed by simply running away from them and shooting them until you win. But if you are going for that elusive S tier rank, which I obviously wasn't because I suck at these type of games, then you actually do need to learn their moveset sort of like you would in a Dark Souls game. The final boss fight, while incredibly strange by design, sort of puts that all together and honestly had a good amount of difficulty involved. But by far the hardest enemy in the game was the god-awful camera angles. What the hell were they thinking? Did the developers even playtest any of this game at all? The camera is never situated where you want it to be. It often changes for almost no reason at all, and even times it had me completely turned around and I would get lost for a brief moment of time. I think the main reason for me that this game goes from a, yeah, it was an okay game to, no, it's a pretty awful game, was because of those awful camera angles. I could blame the average story or the disappointing gameplay, but the most fun I had in this game was in the Bloody Palace mode, which I played for hours, and that's because the camera angle barely changes. If I had saved up all of my money back in 2003 as a child and bought this game, I would have been so disappointed that I would have cried. Not may have cried, definitely would have cried. Little boy does cry. This is my third video in this series of playing the worst game in the franchise to see if it can entice me to play more. And this is the first game where it has honestly 100% put me off playing any other Devil May Cry game in the future. Look, I'm not an idiot. I mean, I kind of am an idiot for doing this series in the first place. I know that this game series is probably incredible, but if I had no internet whatsoever and Devil May Cry 2 was the only game in this series I had ever played, then yes, I'm 100% never playing another one ever again. If this is your first experience of watching me on YouTube, then you probably don't know that I'm not usually this harsh when I review older games. I mean, I've played some pretty average games, but I always seem to find more positives than negatives. So don't judge me too hard, especially if you love Devil May Cry 2. So please consider subscribing if you made it this far, and let me know if you like this series, because I've got a few more planned in the future. Until next time, see ya.